With Nazi Germany at the height of its power, the Allied powers needed the help of the French resistance in order to reclaim France and win the war. But the French would listen to one man. That man was Charles de Gaulle. When Charles de Gaulle took a stand for the freedom of France, he took a stand for the freedom of Europe and the idea of freedom itself. Born in the city of Lille in northern France, Charles-André Joseph Marie de Gaulle was part of a deeply religious family of Catholics. His family was full of intellectuals and nationalists who helped shape him into the man he would be in the years to come. After receiving an education at Saint-Cyr, the premier French military academy equivalent to West Point, de Gaulle, along with tens of thousands of fellow Frenchmen, fought in the First World War. After the war, he wrote a book called The Army of the Future, calling for France to modernize its armed forces with mechanized weapons such as tanks, something the Germans did, but the French did not. With Nazi Germany at the height of its power, Charles de Gaulle played a pivotal role in winning due to his no-nonsense attitude, his many years of military experience, and rallying much of France to his side made him a force capable of fighting Hitler's regime and proved vital for the Third Reich's defeat. Only a colonel at the outbreak of World War II, Charles de Gaulle led a tank regiment in the French Fifth Army. This allowed him to begin bringing his own military theories to the battlefield. His approach to warfare in the modern age was akin to that of General Patton's. For his successes, he was promoted to Secretary of State for National Defense and War. He unsuccessfully resisted surrender, hoping to keep fighting from the French colonies in Africa. However, on June 25, 1940, the Third French Republic fell and capitulated to the German might. Upon hearing of the French armistice with Germany, de Gaulle fled with several other officers to Britain. He quickly began trying to establish a resistance movement to liberate France with French soldiers and officers that could join up. On June 18th of that same year, Charles de Gaulle gave one of his most crucial speeches to both Britain and France now under the Vichy regime, the ruling government under occupation. The Appeal of June 18, 1940 marked a turning point for France as de Gaulle stepped up to lead a resistance and encourage other Frenchmen to join the fight. He knew he had to get his people to join him in order to have a chance. The Vichy regime gave him the death penalty for treason. This did not stop Charles, who went on giving speeches and gaining popularity among the people and soldiers of France. Even though he was gaining support in France, he was constantly on the verge of losing his support with the Allied powers, not only for his insistence of keeping full control of action, but also for what Churchill described as patriotic arrogance. These strained relations were understandable as de Gaulle believed the British were going to take over French colonies, and with the betrayal of his own government, his demands could be seen as a precaution. But it also demonstrates his readiness to spring into action whenever the need is presented. As the liberation of France began, French forces were there and fought alongside the British and American troops. On August 20, 1944, the 2nd French Armored Division liberated the French capital of Paris. On the 26th of that same month, gunfire erupted on de Gaulle's procession. More gunfire occurred as he entered the Notre Dame Cathedral, where he was to be received as head of the provisional government by the Committee of Liberation. Although his generals Leclerc and Koenig tried to rush him inside, de Gaulle simply walked with his posture straight and head held high. Later that same day, he gave his famous words on the continuity of the Third French Republic at the Hôtel de Ville. His spirit only encouraged many Frenchmen to rebuild and keep fighting to free all of France. However, this freedom didn't come with a price as the country began to collapse without formal leadership. Charles de Gaulle, in an effort to save the Republic, went on a tour of the country, giving speeches and curbed the communist resistance that was underway. Having the full support of the people was the only way to capture the rest of France, and de Gaulle understood this need. In May of 1945, the Germans surrendered to American and British forces, and an armistice was signed. Soon afterwards, in October of that same year, elections were held to decide the fate of the newly reunited motherland. De Gaulle campaigned for a strong executive branch, but faced resistance from other parties who wanted to restrict the powers of the presidency. Communists clashed with the Socialists, de Gaulle, and the Popular Republican movement as to how long the Assembly should be in power. However, only 2 months after taking charge of the government, de Gaulle stepped down because of the dominant Communist Party's interference and how he refused to put communists in any major positions. Although he could be stubborn at times, he can easily be recognized today as the savior of France. It would have been impossible for the Allies to secure France without a resistance in their motherland, and the voice of that resistance came from Charles de Gaulle. Because the appeal of June 18th was not recorded, this is the appeal of June 22nd, which was a subsequent appeal to implore the French people to fight for freedom.
Cette guerre est une guerre mondiale. Nul ne peut prévoir si les peuples qui sont neutres aujourd'hui le resteront demain. Même les alliés de l'Allemagne resteront-ils toujours ses alliés? Si les forces de la liberté triomphent finalement de celles de la servitude, quel serait le destin d'une France qui se serait soumise à l'ennemi? L'honneur, le bon sens, l'intérêt supérieur de la patrie commandent à tous les Français libres de continuer le combat là où ils seront et comme ils pourront. Il est par conséquent nécessaire de grouper partout où cela se peut une force française aussi grande que possible. Tout ce qui peut être réuni en fait d'éléments militaires français et de capacités françaises de production d'armement doit être organisé partout où il y en a. Moi, général de Gaulle, j'entreprends ici, en Angleterre, cette tâche nationale. J'invite tous les militaires français des armées de terre, de mer et de l'air. J'invite les ingénieurs et les ouvriers français spécialistes de l'armement qui se trouvent en territoire britannique ou qui pourraient y parvenir à se réunir à moi. J'invite les chefs, les soldats, les marins, les aviateurs des forces françaises de terre, de mer, de l'air, où qu'ils se trouvent actuellement, à se mettre en rapport avec moi. J'invite tous les Français qui veulent rester libres à m'écouter et à me suivre. Vive la France, libre dans l'honneur et dans l'indépendance.
For taking a stand in the face of evil, Charles de Gaulle is known as the savior of France.
Allons enfants de la patrie,